couple of months ago, my daughter said that a friend of hers from when she was a little kid wanted a portrait of herself that she could leave with her children from when she was a little girl. And would I please paint a portrait? Now, I'm not a portrait painter, so I hesitated a bit, but I accepted to do that. And then over the last couple of months, I've painted that. And you can see it right beside me. This is Tina, a very pretty little girl when she was, whatever this is, 6 or 7 years old. It's hard to tell now because she's well up there in her 50s by now. But I was given a small slide, which I then digitized so that I could get a better look at what was actually there as an image and a likeness of Tina. And then I turned it into a print on my printer. There's the print. And you can see that it's relatively plain. And although it's not bad, it's hard to see the details because it was blown up from a small slide which was centuries old. So I had to decide in the beginning, how am I going to paint this piece? How should I approach it? And actually in the beginning I was remembering Renoir's The Swing, if you've ever seen that painting. It's a series of dabs of color that'll stop you in your tracks when you stand in front of it. It's just really quite a wonderful painting because it deals with light and color as the Impressionists did. And I thought maybe I should try and approach it that way. So you can see here that I did stay, I mean, I'm not Renoir, but I did try to stay with dashing brush strokes. And of course he was using oils. Acrylics weren't available at that time. And I use an acrylic now, which is a relatively modern medium, probably from the late 40s, early 1950s. And of course, many artists now use acrylic rather than oil because while it's wet, it's water soluble. And then when it dries to a distinct polymer plastic that adheres to the canvas and is pretty permanent, doesn't crack and yellow like oil paint. So I thought I would try it with dashing brush strokes to give that funny old slide a little more life for a painting that was going to hang on the wall probably for a long time in our family. So you can see I did that. I used some pretty dashing brush strokes in the background and some pretty dashing color in here. And when I'm back here, I put a lot of blue into the color so that it pushes it back and gives the painting distance, because that's what aerial perspective is all about. You get a blue tone to the air as it gets further away from you because of the particles in the air and that end of the spectrum getting scattered by those particles. It was a sunny day though, you can see it was a very sunny day, so I had to keep my colors bright even though I'm toning them down for distance. So it's a delicate matter of just how much to tone the color down because you want to keep it looking like a sunny day. And then to focus in on Tina in the end, I became more detailed and more careful how I did it so that you will focus in on her in this rather than other things which could have had a lot more detail but then would probably have diminished your attention when it comes to looking at Tina. And that's the sole reason for having the portrait in the first place, to get a likeness of Tina. Her clothing gives a nice relief because it's bright in comparison to the grays on the dock. And of course in the slide I got, the dock looks perfectly white, and if you've ever stood on the dock, it may look old and weathered, but it isn't basically white. And I thought, well, I would increase an amount of color in here, and as you can see, I gradated the colors as they go into the background here, so that I would get some length out of this deck that isn't so apparent in the original slide. Well, enough talk about the painting, except for one thing. I'm now varnishing it, and I thought I should probably, for people who've never ever varnished a painting, I should maybe get this down on a video so that people can see how it's done. It says on the bottle, I'm using Liquitex varnish, it says on the bottle to do 2 thin coats and don't put any water with it. So, you know, I've been careful about that. And if you do those things they say don't to do, you can start getting bubbles in the surface and so on. When you look sideways on the painting, you will see the spots that are dry. Putting a varnish on a painting is like putting water on a stone. The colors come out, the light is captured, reflects back and forth between the canvas and the surface of the water and illuminates the color better, just like it does when you wet a stone. So that's what I'm getting at here in putting on the varnish. It's a permanent protection that won't yellow and so on, and help to protect the painting, but it also brings out the depth, especially in the darker colors. So that's what comes out on the clothing here. It gives this clothing a lot more depth. That's what happened with the fish when I put some varnish on it. The depth of the color comes out a lot better. We may see that as I proceed to the dark here. What I noticed when I was standing sideways to the painting was I missed a bit up here. So when you stand over sideways to the painting, you can see what areas are unvarnished, because there's no reflection coming off of that. The color is basically sort of a matte finish. It has a little bit of a shine to it, but not much. So acrylic color dries fairly matte, and if you're looking carefully from the side, looking this way with a light on this side, then you can see, oh, no light being reflected off that area. I must have missed that area. So that's one way of checking as you're going through it. Now I've actually varnished down around this area, and I'm now getting down into this area here. And notice when I'm doing it, I'm doing brush strokes in all directions. I don't want brush strokes to show, I don't want to go around the edge of a dress and perhaps leave some kind of line created by the raising of the varnish that will draw a person's eye to it in an unnecessary fashion. We don't want anything to take away from the image. So this is like, in a way, putting a piece of glass over it and bringing out the depth in the color. So maybe I'm not quite sure what you'll be able to see on the video. You certainly can see it in person, but I just put some varnish on here. I don't know whether that looks darker on the video, but when I do it here, there, I could see the difference there from where I'm standing, and maybe you could as I put it on there. There's another dark spot down here, the shadow of Tina on the dock. If you look at it now, and now I'll put this over the top, you probably can see that go richer, darker, and has more depth to the color. Like I say, just like wetting a stone and giving it a certain richness that it didn't have before you did so. So I will finish doing this now, and I'll wait till tomorrow because it should dry for a minimum of 3 hours, and it's getting later into the evening, so I'll let it dry overnight and then I'll do it again tomorrow. And like I say, I'll keep looking from the side to make sure that I didn't leave any spot unvarnished, because once it gets on the wall, if there's a spot like that that people can see from various angles, they're going to wonder what's wrong with the painting. So it's delicate, but it isn't delicate. It's a very definite process, and I hope you understand it better now. Bye-bye.